Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to That D Plus Show. Class is in session for the only show from that nerdy site that lets you know what kind of quality to expect right from the name. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and each week we dive into a different Disney Plus offering and discuss its history, how it holds up today, and our general impressions. If you like the show, we would love it if you like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Joining me today, we have once again Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cameron?
Ted. He's called Ted.
He is called Ted indeed. Today we're going to be talking about Werewolf by Night, the latest MCU special presentation, the first MCU special presentation. This is episode 2 of our Halloween 2022 run of That D Plus shows. After we did Hocus Pocus 2 last week, we're doing some Werewolf by Night this week. Next week, we're going to do Halloween Town High, which I've just remembered and am sort of not looking forward to because I haven't been the biggest fan of the original Halloween Town movies. And then we were going to wrap up our Halloween month with Treehouse of Horror episodes 4, 5, and 6 from The Simpsons, continuing our trend that we started last year. So why do we pick it? Because it's Halloween month. We're going to be doing, it made the most sense. It came out last week, and we weren't originally anticipating last week's episode to be a Saturday episode. That just kind of happened as a result of some internet issues. So this came out last Friday, so it made sense to make it this week's episode. Originally released on October 7th, 2022, has a runtime of about 52 minutes. In the MCU timeline of things, we had back in March, we had Moon Knight, we had Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in May, Miss Marvel ran from June through July, Thor Love and Thunder, July 8th, I Am Groot, launched on August 10th of this year, She-Hulk, is launched August 17th through today as we were recording, October 13th. That has wrapped up now. And so we had Werewolf by Night, came out October 7th. Up next on the slate is Black Panther Wakanda Forever on November 11th, followed by the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which will be a Marvel special presentation akin to this one, coming out presumably in December. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania will be coming February 17th, 2023. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, May 5th. And The Marvels coming July 28th, 2023, assuming none of those other dates get pushed. Our roll call here, our director, Michael Giacchino, in his largely directorial debut. He's got like a couple shorts to his name, credits-wise, but are you doing something, Cameron?
I'm just getting my water.
Okay. I couldn't tell if that was like some kind of like prop that you were utilizing for some sort of thing in honor of Michael Giacchino, but
No. I legitimately, I don't know if you noticed, I've been using this for the last couple weeks, so
I've seen it. It's big. I will say it doesn't always show up because of the Discord background. Sometimes it gets blurred out like it is right there.
No, it is a 64 ounce water container.
All right, that'll do it.
So,
but yes, Michael Giacchino is our director for this one. In his directorial debut, he is best known as the award-winning composer for projects like Up or Ratatouille. He won an Oscar for Up. He won an Emmy for Lost. And he has won Grammys for both Ratatouille and Up. He's also worked in the video game space. It was actually one of his earlier gigs was back in the video game space, back in the Medal of Honor and early Call of Duty days. That basically led him to working with J.J. Abrams on Alias and Lost. He was also this is always just a fun little fact that I enjoy. He was the composer for the Space Mountain ride when they updated it back in 2005. So if you go on Space Mountain these days, it is his kind of soundtrack that is playing in your ears. Other films he's worked on, in addition to The Incredibles, is Sky High, Mission Impossible 3, Ratatouille, Star Trek, Up, and then just a whole bunch of stuff more recently. He's kind of taking over the space these days. So shout out to Michael Giacchino doing the directing thing this time around. He also is, of course, the sound composer on this as well. But yeah. Our writers here, we have Heather Quinn with a story by and teleplay by credit. She previously worked on Hawkeye as a staff writer. And Peter Cameron is another teleplay by credit, having worked on series like Carnival Row, WandaVision, and Moon Knight. Starring, we have Gael Garcia Bernal, probably jumped to fame back with Y Tu Mama Tambien back in the day. He also was in the Motorcycle Diaries. He was in the Jon Stewart directed Rosewater, which is what I always remember him from. Not that I ever saw that movie, but I remember being a big fan of The Daily Show and Jon Stewart at the time. And so seeing Gael Garcia Bernal being interviewed and kind of working on that project. More recently, he was in Mozart in the Jungle. He was Hector in Coco. And he was in the film Old, one of M. Night Shyamalan's films from last year. Laura Donnelly is playing... Oh, shoot. I forgot to grab their character names, actually. Gael Garcia Bernal playing Jack Russell.
He's playing Jack.
Yeah.
Jack Russell. Mm-hmm.
Laura Donnelly playing Elsa Bloodstone, previously having worked on shows like Outlander and The Nevers. Harriet Sampson Harris playing Verusa. She was in Addams Family Values back in the day, as well as Memento. She had a recurring character on Frasier. She's in Desperate Housewives. And then more recently, she was in Atlantic Crossing, where she played Eleanor Roosevelt. That jumped out at me. And she was in last year's Licorice Pizza. She is very much a character actor who's done a whole bunch of, small bits and stuff like that. And then the last one I pulled in here, Kirk R. Thatcher playing Jovan. He's always just a fun one to pull in because he is the punk on bus in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, which has been become a pop culture icon of his own. He was given a little homage in Spider-Man Homecoming, where he was credited as Punk on Street, not Punk on Bus, as I have written here in my notes. I think he's basically out there, harassing Spider-Man at some point. But then he also reprised his Punk on Bus role as Mohawk Punk in Star Trek Picard recently.
I heard about that, yeah.
And then lastly, he was also the writer-director of Muppets Haunted Mansion, which we did last year around this time. Almost a year to the day, actually, I believe. So shout out to his work with the Muppets as well. Some trivia for you. At around 16 and the 31-minute marks, the quote, the cigarette burn effect appears in the top right corner of the screen. This used to appear in old films, which was served as a reminder for when to change reels on the film projectors. It's kind of a visual guide for projectionists, which we don't have much in the digital age. To Cameron's allusion earlier, the monster named Ted is better known to comic book fans as Man-Thing, Dr. Ted Sallis. His face previously appeared in Thor Ragnarok as one of the sculpted faces on the Grandmaster's Palace, suggesting that he has previously sojourned off-world and served as a champion of Sakaar. Who knows whether that's legitimate or canon these days, or if it was just a fun little Easter egg. But in the comics, Sallis was once married to Ellen Brandt, who previously has appeared in Iron Man 3 as the extremist lady that fights Tony. Additionally, Sallis was name-checked in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Maria Hill. So that's Man-Thing's long-awaited debut, but he's kind of had little Easter egg cameos throughout. Despite the movie's look and feel of vintage film cinematography, it was actually shot on digital with a black and white filter applied. And among the many creative reasons behind the use of the black and white filter in this film, the main purpose was to obscure the blood and gore in order to avoid a TVMA rating. Because, holy crap, this is a violent thing.
There's way more violence in this than I thought there was going to be.
Yeah, very violent, but since all of the blood splatter and gore is just kind of in, very dimly lit black and white, they get away with it.
When the hand of the guy gets lopped off, that's when I was like, oh wow, okay, this is going
for me. It was, and maybe this is the same moment, but it was like the hand gets lopped off. You don't see anything in that moment, but when she pulls him out and flips him, you see like blood just gushing.
Oh yeah, blood splat. Yeah, gushes out, and then when she launches his dart, wrist dart thing into his thing, and it goes up under his mouth, through his tongue, and out the other part of his mouth.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh.
Yeah. For me,
I was like, oh man, Trevor did not expect that there's going to be this much gore.
No. But it when it is stylized like this and largely obscured, I am typically okay with it. If this had been in color and it was just that kind of stuff, I would have been like, yep, nope, a la Suicide Squad.
If Suicide Squad was in black and white, you probably could have done better.
Probably, yeah. That's it for the trivia, so we can just kind of segue into talking about the thing as we kind of already have. What did you think of this, Cameron?
I really enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Fun fact, I'm a big fan of those schlocky horror films from back in the day. I'm talking OG, like Nosferatu, Dracula, the Wolfman, Frankenstein, like the old school, like the It's Alive kind of like Frankenstein one. Mm-hmm. And of course, they're parodies, anywhere from Dr. Frankenstein to Dracula, Dead and Loving It. I'm a suck.
By Dr. Frankenstein, do you mean Young Frankenstein? The Mel Brooks?
Young Frankenstein, sorry. Mel Brooks.
I was like, so I don't know of a parody called Dr. Frankenstein. It's probably out there, but
Young Frankenstein. Yeah. It's funny enough. Young Frankenstein is the movie that got me into black and white films. Actually, before then, I was like, if it's in black and white, don't care. Mm-hmm. And my mom sat me down to watch Young Frankenstein. Fun side fact: my mother denied this ever happened until I was an adult and had to fess up. And it shocked my father so badly. Because I tried to buy her a copy. We were at Ross, and I was like, Young Frankenstein, Mom loves this movie. And my dad was just like, your mother would never love a movie like this. Like my mother's a good woman who's not this is a perverted film, yada, yada, yada. And that's
a weird read on Young Frankenstein. I would not think of it as
my dad. My parents can be summed up by their music choices. My dad had gospel choir music on record. Mm-hmm. So when I was doing recording my parents' record collection and digitizing it for my mom's birthday years ago, the collection could be split in half between religious stuff and choirs and everything, and then records from The Doors and Chicago and good music. And when I was like, Mom, do I need to digitize all these? She goes, oh no, just my part of the collection. I was like, which is it? Which part? And she goes, these are all your dad's, these are mine. And I was like, oh, okay, Mom has good music taste. My mom has good taste in music. My dad, not so much. Turning that back around now, my mom, when we got home, I was like, Mom, tell Dad that you had me watch Young Frankenstein with you. And she said, I don't know what you're talking about. A lie that she held up for years until a decade and some change later. Mm-hmm. And she fessed up, and my dad was just couldn't believe it. And he immediately forgave her because it's that's just my parents.
That reminds me of the time my dad rented South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and then left it in the VCR player for me while he and my mom went up to our winter cabin up outside Payson or something like that. So I was able to watch that that weekend, but it was very much like a don't tell your mother we did this kind of thing.
Yep. My parents don't normally have those sorts of things because when that sort of thing does happen, no, the warning, don't tell the other parent does not come. Mm-hmm. And so when it eventually does come up in conversation, it's a rough place, but it's only happened, I think 2 or 3 times in my lifetime that it's been don't tell your father about this, or don't tell your mom about this. And it usually has to do, and it's never anything awful or terrible. It's usually just something that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
For one parent or the other.
Yeah. I do not have the deep like love or affinity for the horror genre. Shockingly, I've seen Young Frankenstein, and like I enjoy the characters and I enjoy those stories. Um, uh, I've just never really had any desire to go back and watch, like those schlocky monster of the, monster of the week old mummy movies, or uh Wolfman, or any of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Um,
A big key that I always found to enjoy them is something that I discovered later, which is horror represents the it's not just the fears, but it's like the like subconscious pathology of the things that we are afraid of and ashamed of. For example, like with vampires, it's aristocracy and the serfdom being cattle, like just for the usage of nobility. And that's aristocracy and everything that's vampires. Werewolves is about, like, particularly with this, is it's about the natural urges that people have, particularly men have. That's a big like push of it in modern cinema. Not modern cinema, sorry. Modern cinema is like, let's see how many monsters we can fuck.
yeah, or
which, like,
and
don't get
let's
me wrong, I'm big on that.
Yeah.
We're good on that. But like in like the older, like when they were putting these films together initially, that Werewolf by Night is based off of, this is the Wolfman. Like that is the point. This is the Wolfman, and the Wolfman story is about a man who has something that he's inherited from his father down to him, and it's this awful like curse that's on him, and dealing with that, and it, like, there's a lot of tie-ins that you can make to it. J.K. Rowling equated like lycanthropy to like AIDS, and kind of like the way that like homosexuality was represented during the 90s. Like there's a lot of like parallels throughout where werewolf and like lycanthropy can kind of fill in the gaps of things that are biological and not necessarily natural, but just biological, that we don't have control of. And what I thought this was going to be was something along that telling of it. I did not expect the story that we got.
Mm-hmm.
This was a very different film than I thought it was going to be, and I really enjoyed that. So,
yeah, I like my exposure to all these things, and to like the archetypes, and to the even the like the film techniques that we get in here is all like secondhand, or like I've seen all sorts of like it's the I've seen The Simpsons make so many kind of like overt references to so much iconography of these things, that like that's like when I see a werewolf transforming or something like that, I'm probably thinking of like a Simpsons episode first, rather than any like actual iterations that I've seen. But it's still like fun, and I can still have an enjoyment for the fact that this is like, the trailer specifically was like such a like almost to the extent of parody, kind of like advertisement, referencing all of those kinds of things. And I guess the other example I have is like from all of the Alamo pre-shows, whenever they would kind of have like the horror themed stuff, I would get those flavors of like, we're gonna see like the really old hokey kind of stuff. But it's still like, I think they do such a great job of like honing in on that feeling, but with a modern sensibility. And like none of this felt like I was watching something out of the 20s,
no.
but it felt very much inspired by those kinds of stories, and using the techniques and tricks of those kinds of stories, putting stuff in shadow, or like showing silhouettes instead of like, camera on the person. Like they did such a good job of drawing from those influences without making this feel like a crappy kind of, or not crappy, but like a film,
like a
from
schlocky kind of film,
from a less advanced techniques. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And it was very much, I kind of went in I think I touched on this when we talked about it last week. Like coming off of like a COVID booster shot was, in a weird sleep deprived kind of state, watch it like 3 a.m. the night it came out. And like it, because of it being in black and white and stuff, none of it was ever like too bad for me. And it isn't doing the modern day horror thing of like leaning into jump scares and stuff like that. So like, it didn't bother me, even though horror is not my preferred genre, but it was such a like refreshing change of pace, even just in like the pacing of the thing itself. Like we get all these like atmospheric, slow, quiet build moments that like just go completely against the big bombast of typically what we see in the MCU. Whether it's, Jack walking into the room for the first time and just kind of this weird camera spin around to show like this
So
central
good.
corridor or something like that, as just like this isn't the kind of shot that we see, because so much of the MCU is like edits every 3 seconds, boom 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 boom, let's cut, let's show a reverse, let's do all these things, and this like lets so much of this breathe in really cool and like just like reinvigorating and exciting ways. So I had a really good time with it, even without the like history and lineage of the other stuff. Any highlights or favorite things or anything you want to give some love to, Cam?
Oh, for sure. Just overall, I love that they went classic Wolfman with his werewolf design.
Mm-hmm.
Like the modern werewolf is they give like the snout and like way more wolf features
Mm-hmm.
to werewolves. Like that is a big thing since I think like really like Werewolf of London, I think really set the tone for that. Kind of like changing the kind of style that we expect from werewolves.
Yeah, let's go from Teen Wolf to like Dogman.
Exactly. That's the entire shift of like Teen Wolf versus Werewolf, or actually I think Werewolves of American Werewolf in London was first. Like it came out in the 70s.
Isn't it American Werewolf in Paris?
No, American Werewolf in London came out first. American Werewolf in Paris came out. That's the sequel.
Oh, okay. Good to know. I think I only ever knew of American Werewolf in Paris because that came out in my lifetime, whereas American Werewolf in London predates me by a few years. So, yeah.
Yeah. American Werewolf. It might like I'm thinking late 70s, early 80s.
It was 81.
81. There you go.
I have it pulled up here.
Yeah. Yeah. So that really changed kind of a lot of outlooks on it. We saw Teen Wolf do the Wolfman look, but after that, it was really just dominant with the more canine features of the wolf,
or even Thriller.
And so
the musical video for Thriller.
Mm-hmm. And so I love that they lean into the OG Wolfman aesthetic. You still see Jack's facial features going on in that. You don't lose it to like entirely CG.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think that it goes super well. Another thing I wanted to
even
give
his
a shout out,
face markings. Loved that like carrying over into his design.
Yeah, there was something about that I thought was interesting. So there's two Wolfmen in Marvel Comics kind of like lore. One is like a Slavic descended werewolf thing that is the like larger canon of it. But then there's another Wolfman that is like a like of like the Hopi tribe. And I'm wondering, like, there's so much that you can read into this, and it could go in a couple different ways. Like, is it Italian to Native American? Is it Oaxacan in like referring to like kind of the native original population of Mexico? Like, are the tie-ins with that? Like, there's a lot that these markings could be that make it unique and interesting. And I'm super curious to see what we get more out of that. The fact that we did have I believe he's a non-white actor, the actor who plays Jack.
Oh yeah, Gael Garcia Bernal. Yeah, he's I believe Mexican descent.
Yeah, so like the fact that I'm super curious, and also the fact that his makeup was also very like lightly reminiscent of like De La, I'm butchering this, but De los Muertos.
Oh, Dia de los Muertos, yeah.
Dia de los Muertos, yeah. The idea of like this kind of like the Mexican Day of the Dead type decal almost. Like there's so many things that could be kind of pulling from this that I really, really like. Because here's a fun note: if that's the case, then was he doing a Jack? Like, is that also like a Jack Skellington bit? Like, things can kind of come across in a lot of different ways here that I really love, and I'm super open to whatever interpretation they want to pull from that with. I thought it was super cool, and like you said, it carries over to his wolf, like his facial features as the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, just love that. I love that he so. Something that they do, and I want to talk about just the characters, then I want to talk about the cinematography in a moment. I love, is it Elsa or
Elsa?
Elsa, yeah. Elsa and Jack's dichotomy, like right off the bat, like when they run into each other, and he looks at her and he says, "We should just pass each other by." And she's like, "Everybody here is definitely out to kill me because I'm the actual heir to this thing. And you're saying we should just pass each other by? Like what? No." And he goes, "We should just pass each other by." And I love how that sets the kind of cadence for their tit for tat relationship going forward. Also, shout out to when he's just like, he goes up to her and he goes, "Okay, I have a plan." And he just starts putting his face all over her. And she's like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "What's going on?" Like, as an audience, you're like, "What the hell, freak? Like, what's going on, man?" And then you realize, oh, he's like trying to like get her sent to like communicate to his other self.
Oh, you're talking.
That she's not.
Gotcha. You're talking like when they're in the cage later on.
Yeah, their entire dichotomy and relationship is really, really good. Also, I love his whole thing where she goes, "Has this ever worked?" And he looks at her and she goes, "Once."
Mm-hmm.
And which is a throwback to the original Wolfman story and film, where he does recognize his love interest at the end, although it's too late, she's dying. And that's a big thing about it. It's really good. It's a whole thing about that I just adore. I think it's just amazing. Now about the cinematography, there are so in the maze. First off, the reveal of the maze, incredible. Loved it. Oh my gosh, it was so good. But the cinematography of the maze itself, and like also pretty much throughout the entire thing, but primarily in the first two sections, when they first enter the Hunter's Lodge, and then when they enter the maze, and being in the maze, the cinematography is such classic, like old school horror. Like the framing of when somebody's like, when the camera pans and somebody enters the scene and they're slinking along. They're not walking, they're not running, they're slinking. They're moving very long, like making very long movements, but very slowly. And there's awesome moments like when Jack has himself pressed up against the hedge and he has like a very classic pose and it's framed very classically. And so when the hand comes out from Ted and grabs him, it's just like a beautiful shout out to so many amazing movies, whether it's the Curse of the Mummy film where, you know, they're up against the sarcophagus and the arm comes out. There's so many moments where this is that they're reenacting in that moment. And then the deconstruction of, this is our big hunter. He's killed over 100 monsters. Oh, he's not here to kill him. This is his friend. He's here to rescue Ted. Is just awesome. And like also with Elsa and the framing of her fights, even though her fights are very much Marvel kind of martial art grappling type stuff, there are moments when she's choking out that guy and killing him, where you see like the dude, the other guy, pick up the axe and his focus is on the axe. And so when he picks it up, he turns away. And as he moves the axe, like you see the frame of the axe being moved away and you see her and he just missed her. Like I grab my axe and I move away, but I've just missed them because of it. Mm-hmm. It's so well done. Just such a classic old school film way of doing it that leads to palpable tension. And because the modern horror expectation is, oh, he saw her and now he's going to jump scare her. But it doesn't happen that way. Mm-hmm. They play it totally old school, and I love it. This film is just awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I really enjoyed just the look of it. Shout out to Zoe White. She's the cinematographer on this. She previously worked on episodes of Handmaid's Tale, Westworld, Hit and Run, and a handful of other projects. Like the look of so many and the framing of so many shots in this is just like great. The highlight probably from an action sense for me is probably the werewolf fight as the door is closing near in the third act. Just like a beautiful, like, it's giving you just enough light to follow the action, but at the same time, like, a whole bunch of that is like happening in shadow. It didn't take it took me until the second viewing to realize that like blood is being splattered on the lens, and that is in part what is starting to obscure more and more of the shot.
As it gets more and more violent, it's more and more obscured by the blood.
Yeah.
But because we're in black and white, it's black and it looks like ink and it's ichor and you can't, like, it's obscure. That's such an amazing effect that they chose to do with that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Similarly, I like the fight scenes that Elsa has, both with the big Scottish guy as well as the guy with the wrist arrow, have like such a and I get really like all of the warriors that she fights, because she fights one or two of them in the
No, she fights all of them.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she takes all of them out. Yeah, she does.
Yeah, she's like, that's one of the things I liked about it is like she's a legitimate badass. At no point, even after he's turned into a werewolf, he's just cleaning up the mooks.
Yeah.
He's just cleaning up the grunts.
Yeah.
She's the one actually taking down all of these like superior hunters.
Yeah.
And she's the one taking them out. And she does it so awesomely. When she uses the heel of her boot, like the extended heel of her boot, to be the thing that deflects the sword, it's so well done. Like the action in these older movies was never great.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. Between prosthetics, makeup, everything, it was never going to be great. And they've just totally, like, by bringing it modern with the fight scene and fight choreography, they've done such an amazing job with that.
And to the point you had earlier, like, I don't think I ever suspected that he was going to jump scare her after not seeing the axe. It was just like, I just kind of took it as like, she is there, like, muffling the guy who is in the throes of dying because he's got this arrow through his throat, and she is muffling him so that they don't, like, their position isn't given away and this guy gets the upper hand on them. But he is so singularly focused on, he sees his axe and he grabs it and goes, that he doesn't see her hidden in the bushes there beyond. But like the brutality of that, of like, she's already beaten this guy, she chopped off his hand, she got an arrow through his throat, there's no way he's like coming back from this, but she, like, not mercifully, but she does just kind of like, all right, like, I'm taking you down, but I'm like, I'm not, you are a liability to me because you're just like choking on your own blood and gurgling up noise, so I need to silence that. So like, here we are in the weeds, quite literally, and it was like such a visceral kind of experience to it. And then the two that she takes out in the later fight, after Jack is turned into the werewolf, both just like the efficiency of taking out the first guy, with, like, he's down on the blade and she just like slides it out and slits his throat, and then the I like, anytime she was on screen I was like, why does she look like David Bowie, the David Bowie-esque looking one?
It's androgynous. It's supposed to be that way.
Indeed, it was the androgynous hairstyle, a la a Ziggy Stardust kind of vibes. Like the fight that they have, I think is another really good one. And then just brutal at the end of she slits his throat and then just sticks the sword in her skull and just leaves it at that. The one she doesn't take out is Tovan, who gets taken out by Ted. But
That's right. Ted.
she does best him in battle first. So even
Yeah.
there, she claims victory over all of these guys basically. Yeah, and I'll say it, like, as somebody who's not a diehard, I probably knew of Man Thing and probably encountered Man Thing in, as a character in a Lego Marvel game or something like that. But I did not. It wasn't until after watching it that I like realized that this was a bigger character and kind of thing. I just thought it was like a cool. I thought it was a cool
Eh.
relationship. But that, like, yeah, Jack is there not because he's a monster hunter, but because he's there to help his monster friend. I was like, oh, that's a fun subversion. This is very cool. I'm excited to see where this goes. And so, finding out more of the character's kind of backstory after the fact, I was like, oh, that's more neat and cool. But even not knowing that, I was like, I still am here for this story and the enjoyment of it. I also really loved that, like, it's so intentionally vague in terms of like when this is taking place kind of thing, except then you get into the mausoleum where you get like, okay, dates, and this is a more modern thing that's happening, especially then, at the end when we get the Wizard of Oz going into color moment, and it is like, oh yeah, these are just like modern, a modern day setting, but like just had all the trappings, in part because of the black and white, but then also because this guy's the Bloodstone was a weird guy in probably some, Eastern European villa or something like that. It just led to a lot of like they got to play, they got the best of both worlds. They got to play with this like existing out of time, but then also you have these goons that have like electric rods and stuff that are,
For me, that was the telling thing. I was like,
yeah.
okay, this is super like modern Marvel. And that, I think I saw that get confirmed because in between, I watched it this afternoon after getting off from subbing. Grabbed dinner, came home, watched it, and just enjoyed it. And then looked it up a little bit and found out like, oh, they're talking about, because nobody's happy with where Blade's at right now. They're talking about maybe bringing Wolfman into Blade, to kind of like lean heavily into the the kind of cool supernatural elements of the Marvel universe. And I think that Wolfman is a great argument that is something that they should do.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of like Blade stuff is up in the air, because he gets a little like vocal cameo at the end of the Eternals, setting up like Blade and the Black Knight, and there were rumors that he was going to have some kind of cameo appearance in this. But yeah, that obviously doesn't pan out. I'll be curious to see if this character returns. There was also, I think back when we were doing Moon Knight, there was like discussion of like, will Oscar Isaac and Moon Knight kind of overlap or have any kind of, since he kind of also exists in this, almost horror realm sometimes,
He
where
does.
the werewolf
Yeah.
is, occasionally a villain of Moon Knight's. So yeah, I'll be interested to see where if some of these characters kind of like reappear, or if they're just their own little one-off kind of, hey, we're not going to play in the like monster universe too much, but hey, now it's there if somebody wants to dabble, if somebody wants to hop in and play with it, or if they want to do like a what if episode or something like that. It's cool that it's now established in and among, the Avengers, because we get kind of the narrator opening. What did you think of the more campy aspects of this? Most notably, I'll say Ulysses Bloodstone's messaging from beyond the grave as like his like animatronic corpse kind of thing.
Trevor, have I ever told you what I want my funeral to be?
No, but now I'm just terrified. Just
So,
based on this context alone.
the funeral itself will be a pretty standard funeral.
Uh-huh.
It's
Are you gonna go
kind
like
of
full Nick Swartzen and just kind of be like dancing out of a coffin or whatever? Was he
No.
was he the one that did that was gonna do that? and like
No,
invite
no,
John
no,
Stamos?
Trevor, I don't want to be buried in a coffin. I want to be buried in a plexiglass case that has slots on the side that you can put the rails in that you can carry me with. But before they do that, I'm going to be taxidermy. So I'm doing like a cool pose, like, or a type thing.
And
for audio listeners,
for audio listeners, yeah, go ahead and describe what you just did.
I did the like 2 thumbs up with a smile, like, hey, and then I also did the 2 fingers pointing at you, like, oh, bro, what up, like, hey, you.
I would like in one of them.
Hear me out.
You did like a Buddy
Finger
Christ
guns.
from Dogma.
Yeah, or finger guns, like mid finger gun, kind of thing. Actually, if I did it, I'd do the 2 finger gun.
I mean, I don't know how you convey that in a static pose because it would just look like pointing. Like finger guns
people would
is
tell because it's mid motion of the finger gun.
Okay,
people would get
sure.
It. All right,
so not once in your illustration of it did you show what it would actually be like in posed. Every time you did it, you did the full finger gun pointing.
So if I were to do it in pose, I would do it like this.
Okay, gotcha.
Which you could actually, here's the turn of that. For some people, finger guns. For other people, in the name of the moon, I shall punish you. Sailor Moon reference. There we go.
Sure.
Bing, bada, boom. Get them all fronts.
I will have
so
nothing
like,
to do with these funeral arrangements whatsoever.
That's fair. Anyway, so that, and then when it's time for me to get, and I want to be on a raised dais in the middle of like where the reception is, where people are eating, so they can all just like there's going to be some music going so people can like dance if they want to. It's just going to be like a little shindig, a little party, sending me off.
I don't think you know how people want to engage with you at a funeral, Cameron. I don't think that's.
It's not about them, Trevor. It's not about them. It's about me. It's my last time that they're ever going to interact with me, and it's about me.
No, it's going to be way more about their grief, more than you who will be gone.
Yeah, well, the point is that they're going out, like, I'm going out with a cool little shindig. It's not going to be like a massive rave party or anything. It's going to be a little shindig. Well, maybe a disco ball be there going and like reflecting off of my plexiglass case. Maybe. Let's have a good time with it. Anyway, that's what I want. And then when it's time to bury me, I want to be buried where they slot it in, they carry me out, and then when they bury me, actually put me in the ground, they bury me face down. So everybody can kiss my ass one last time on the way out.
Sure. So what you're saying is you effectively.
Now I want to be buried face up because I want it to be creepy when people. Actually, I need to be face down because it'll be too creepy for people to be burying me that way.
Sure, whatever. What you're saying is you need the manservant guy who will like help make any of these things happen.
No, you just have to put it in your will and have it be executed by an executor of the will.
Okay. I feel like somebody's gonna need to like buy into that as opposed to.
It's been more than a decade, but I did check with an attorney, and it's totally fine.
I don't doubt that that's what they'll tell you. I'm just saying I don't know. Like, you got to have somebody who will actually do it, as opposed to tell you that they're going to do it.
People plan out their funerals all the time before they die.
You got to have your little sycophant guy to help make you these machinations come true.
I don't need a sycophant. I just need to make sure that my parents are not the executors of my estate.
Sure.
Because my mother has already told me she refuses to ever do that.
Yeah.
My dad found it weird, a little creepy with the whole taxidermying myself thing. But overall, he just wasn't willing to like. He's like, if you pay for it, then fine.
So this is way too long of a story to say you really liked that guy. You really liked.
Oh
Ulysses
yeah, sorry. Let me
bit.
roll back here. Let me roll back on topic. This is the D Plus show, not that Nerdy Site podcast. That Nerdy Site show. Which will be coming out this week. We'll be recording this weekend for Monday. So maybe this will come up then. No, I really liked it. Like, that's totally like I dug it, especially the cheesy beyond like graveyard jokes. That whole thing, loved it. I absolutely loved it. The fact that it was like crank operated by the manservant.
Yeah.
Oh, now I see why you brought up the sycophant. You were trying to get us back to the original point.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, like I like totally like that guy is 100% my jam. He probably wasn't while he was alive because it seemed like he sucked like a great deal. while he was living. Like he kind of sucked massively,
Mhm.
but he had a cool way of going out. I dug that.
Yeah. Yeah, like I just had like a shocked at like especially because I don't think I like when the trailer came out. I watched the trailer once, and it was very like B horror, like kind of like homages and references and stuff like that. And I was like, I was already gonna watch this, but now I know that it's going to make Disney that D Plus show content great. Um, and so I didn't like watch it closely enough to remember or know if that guy was in it, but I was definitely like as I was watching the like watching it in real time, I was just like, this is wild. That like this is a thing that is existing in the same universe as like that's the thing I'm always angry or or the other 20 30 plus 30 movies and a dozen shows or whatever we're at this point. Like the fact that this exists in tandem with all that, it's just like, all right, yep, this is a very weird universe. And shout out to this guy just being this weird macabre kind of like, I'm going to have myself turned into a an animatronic kind of figurine a la a Disney ride or something for this spiel. And it was like, I saw it coming as soon as the guy put the crank in. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a thing. And then I just kind of like chuckled to myself the entire time. And I love that like the wife, the stepmom, is basically like still lusting after him. Her whole thing
that was
is
the crazy
just,
part. I was gonna say,
she's horny for him.
When she interlocked their fingers, I was like, no, too much. This is why I'm gonna be sealed in plexiglass. Nobody can actually interact with my body.
And to that, I love that everybody else responds in like a pretty natural way. Like everybody else is like, I mean, this guy was eccentric, so sure, we're here. And then Elsa's just like, this is gross, and eye rolling the whole time. I was just like, yep.
When her stepmom says the most incredible lover, and she's like, oh
yeah,
gagging me with a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, I felt that.
But yeah, so it like I enjoyed how well this like married that campness to it, to the like brutality of the fights, or to the just atmosphere and whole aura of the cinematography and the visuals and stuff. Because yeah, it was just like, it was a fun full package. Like I don't know if this is like top tier, but I think largely the reason, like the things that keep it from being top tier of the MCU for me are largely just like, this genre isn't my jam, but I think it does. Like, this is infinitely better compared to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness for me, and I think both of them were trying to hit some of the same thematic and genre tones, and I think this just executes so much better than Doctor Strange did. And so yeah, I had so much fun watching this. I don't know if it's something that I will remember in 6 months time as like oh yeah, that was like a really cool thing in the MCU, but for the couple of times I sat down and just kind of enjoyed it, shout out to the flaming tuba man. You gotta love anytime you get a flaming tuba, I guess, in a thing. Yeah.
Trevor, I want to make a point though. When you said it's in the same universe as all these things, there's literally a movie about like aliens who helped civilization find itself and ground itself and grow, and ended with literally an interplanetary god being coming, like being birthed from our planet.
Yeah,
that
fair.
happened in the same universe as Wolfman tearing up the Hunter's Lodge.
Wolfman tearing up the Hunter's Lodge, and like, because it's not just the Wolfman. It is this gives you that, like, yeah, vampire, like obviously we knew vampires were a thing because of Blade and all that stuff, but like we see the Nosferatu, we see all these grotesque horror monster creatures, heads on the wall and stuff like that.
Shout out to the reference of like Dracula versus Wolfman, like the entire like filmology of that rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to that one especially because when he points to it and he goes, no, I haven't killed any of these, but I did fight that a couple of times, and points up to the Nosferatu. It's just like right there, right then and there, I knew like they know exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is such a niche reference. But it also builds the character of, oh, he is a hunter, like he does kill these things, except he doesn't. It's the other side of him that does. It's cool.
Yeah,
it's just cool, man. This entire thing's just cool as hell.
Or like I very much read it because it's maybe something that came more on the second viewing, because the first time around I was certainly more like, it's weird that she phrases more like his kill count as more than 100 deaths compared to like everybody else just being a kill count. So I was like, maybe there's something weird going on there. And on a second viewing and by the end, and I'm like, oh no, he probably was hunting a lot of those monsters who are violent, horrible monsters that are out there to kill.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But like, monsters that aren't like Ted, that are just kind of like out there chilling, doing their own thing. You probably can use his monster slaying abilities to fight against that and deal with that. So
he's a monster who fights other monsters, but he's also a monster that protects the good monsters.
Yeah.
And murders bad people. So
indeed. And there's also the I didn't highlight this as a trivia thing, but I believe I think it's like in the Latin that is like shown on screen or something during like the opening talking about Ulysses Bloodstone. It is heavily implied that Ulysses died in the previous full moon. So the suggestion is that Jack killed him, and has like returned as part of this whole ceremony thing as well. So that's
like Ulysses captured Man-Thing, and in pursuit of Man-Thing, he killed Ulysses.
Yeah, that's
cool.
I don't know, like
that is cool.
I don't think it gets into like the nitty gritty of it, but like the Latin seems to suggest that that he died upon the last time the moon was full or something to that effect. So
that is so good.
Given Jack's proclivities on a full moon, seems seems like more than a coincidence that that he died on a full moon. So
that's so cool, man. I really can't wait for like all the Easter eggs to kind of pour out of this one.
Yeah.
It's just been super cool.
Mm-hmm. Any final thoughts you want to share before we wrap up?
Shout out to that werewolf song, the one that goes, oh, do 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 do. That one, whatever that was. Shout out to that. It's not in the film at all. I just missed that song.
All right, I don't know what that, especially in part because I think your mic cut out. So
my mic cut out.
I didn't hear you.
I believe it is the Werewolves.
Like,
I believe it is the Werewolves of London song.
Mm-hmm. Werewolves of London. Yeah,
Werewolves of London.
Okay.
That one. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the song.
Like I thought that was probably what you were going for, but like I only heard kind of a howl, and it didn't have like a sing-songy tone to it, like
that's
I think
fair.
of when I
that's
think
fair.
of that song. So, sure. Shout out to that. Thanks, Cam, for just bringing it on home. Well, that is gonna do it. So, what do we want to give Werewolf by Night on the report card from A+ to F? What do you want to give Werewolf by Night, Cam?
This is getting a full A+ for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that everything it does, it executes perfectly. I think its length is ideal for this kind of a story. It's not too, like, we don't need a multi-episode series about this. We don't need a 2.5 hour long movie about it. And like a 40 to 80 minute just thing that we get is just ideal and perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I even though this isn't like my genre of choice, I give it an A+ too, because I think it does it executes so well on what it's trying to do that, like, even though I'm not a big horror guy, I can still like watch this and be like, they're nailing this on all fronts. This is a ton of fun. We didn't talk extensively about it, but the transformation itself.
Oh, great.
That sequence happening in the in the budget friendly format of all in silhouette, is great from that perspective, but also just because there wasn't, I don't think there would have been any good way to do it not doing it that way, that didn't take you out of the whole rest of the vibe of it. If that had been
Well,
like
it's
a CG transformation sequence, even if they stuck with the like classic, mask and fur and all that kind of look for it, the transition of going from Gael Garcia Bernal's face to that face, Animorphs style or whatever, would have looked really weird and out of place with the rest of everything else that's going on here. So the fact that it all happens in silhouette and off screen, and we just kind of get when the camera like turns back on him and he is fully formed, I think that was like a perfect way to go and approach that. So and this special presentation is just full of those kinds of sequences.
I forgot what show it is. There's a show on Netflix. It was like one of their first originals that came out. It was like supernatural with they had like gypsy werewolves. Romani werewolves. And I thought they had probably the coolest transformation ever, because it was literally like a wolf, like the human body was being torn apart as it turned into a wolf, and its like skin like was like forced off and stuff like that. But like that is incredibly expensive. I think it was smart to do it budget wise. I think it was smart to maintain a it looks better if you don't actually see it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a better way of, you're showing me without showing me.
Yeah.
The silhouettes, you see people's horror as the body is being, you see the silhouette being like absolutely like mangled and twisted around as he transforms, and it's just awesome.
Yeah, it's the Jaws effect of like, by hiding the monster as long as you do, it just makes it that much more impactful.
When
cool.
One of the hunters is so horrified, he takes off that ceremonial mask and he's just like looking at it, doesn't break his like line of vision on it at any point.
Mm-hmm.
Such a cool moment. Yeah. Just so cool. Like he's like, I have to see this with my, like, there's something of like, this is so messed up, I have to make sure I'm seeing this correctly. Like that whole moment is awesome.
Yeah. Extra credit, other suggestions if you like this. You have Moon Knight, you have What If, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Hawkeye, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Black Widow, Loki, and The Falcon and Winter Soldier, all, of course, from the MCU. Extracurriculars, you watching anything else on Disney Plus, Cameron?
Yeah, She-Hulk. Gonna catch I have to watch last week's episode as well as this week's episode, but excited to finish She-Hulk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched the She-Hulk finale last night, so I won't get into that. We're probably gonna do, when we get into November, I think our first episode of November is going to be like the She-Hulk wrap up, and then I think sometime around that we'll also have the Andor wrap up, probably mid to late November, because that's the other thing I watched. We have the kind of, we're at the midway point of Andor. We got the conclusion episode of this like second little 3-episode mini arc that they've been doing. Really good stuff. Both of those episodes I was like thoroughly impressed by and very much enjoyed. I will also say I sat down and watched, I might have had this for last week, but I didn't remember to bring it up, or it might have been something I watched after Hocus Pocus 2. But I did watch the first episode of season 2 of Mighty Ducks Game Changers, which, like, the first season of Mighty Ducks Game Changers was fine and charming, and it was like a silly thing to do. This did the exact same thing that the latest High School Musical, the series, did, of like, it just cut out like half of the cast with no explanation, and even in the same way of like, hey, we're going to take these kids to camp, and so like the team, like just 2 or 3 of the kids from the first season just don't show up, aren't mentioned at all. It was a much bigger story that Emilio Estevez wasn't going to be back. The rumors were around like COVID vaccination refusal and stuff like that, so fuck that noise. But yeah, it's a weird one. I've not bothered to like check in to see any other episodes or whatever. Yeah, I don't know why they keep doing that, of like, hey, we had 8 kids in our first season or whatever, but we're only going to bring back 5 or 6 of them for season 2. And, sucks to be those kids who did not get brought back because they had this cool gig and then just are completely written out without a thought. Just weird stuff.
I think the best one that I've seen was Cobra Kai. They had one of the they had the girl who got out, but they've completely like wrote it off believably, which is, well, like, what happened to so and so? It's like, well, her dad saw like what happened on the news and like pulled her out and put her in like another school, like, to completely removed her from the situation. It's like, you know what, if there was a kung fu gang war at my school with my kid and my kid was involved, I would take her out too.
Yeah.
I would put her in a different school as well. That is not like the kind, like, that is smart parenting.
Yeah.
Smart, believable parenting happens in that show sometimes.
That is definitely another example of this that I think about. And yes, to their credit, they at least like put in some kind of explanation for why that actor isn't around. But it still also sucks for that actress to just be written out of the show because they didn't have a thing for her character to do for the season. And to their credit, I know they do bring her back in like an episode or 2 in season 4 or whatever. But yeah, it's still like, well, that sucks. Not for anything out of like, I'm saying not this most recent season that's on.
But the one, I haven't watched the last 2, the latest 2 seasons yet.
Gotcha.
I fell off and I need to get back on.
Gotcha.
Among many things, I need to get back on.
It is just, it's just a crappy thing of like, oh, this kid who was like just part of the ensemble, just the writers forgot to give that character an arc this season. So we're just going to not bring them back. And suddenly they don't have a job. Lame. And then even more so lame in, like these seasons of High School Musical or Game Changer, where they just don't even explain why those kids aren't around either. It's just like, yeah, that's weird that they just disappeared and didn't get invited to this summer camp thing like the rest of us did, even though we're all on the same team. Yeah, just weird stuff. Anyway, that's way more time than we needed to talk about Game Changer, Mighty Ducks. But yeah, that is going to do it for this week's episode of That D Plus Show. Thank you, Cam, for joining me to talk about Werewolf by Night. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, shout out to you doing the Thieves Guild quest line in Skyrim right now in your Let's Play series for Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
Thieves Guild stuff is easily like my favorite like through line in that entire game. I found it like absolutely awesome. I like that you're going through it right now. It is, yeah, it's one of my favorite kind of twists on everything in regards to Skyrim, just like how that entire quest line kind of like goes through it, and then also like the whole like full gambit that you end up on by the time you wrap it up is just so incredible. And I think it is highlighted as, in my opinion, like the best quest line until the vampire DLC came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they do with that DLC is beyond amazing in regards to like options and choices and like quest line flavors and everything that goes in that DLC. I think is just incredible. So
cool. Yeah, you can follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I did almost when we were talking about it, I was like, I did also play as a werewolf recently as I went through the companion quest line, but I also in all the times I've played Skyrim, I'm the werewolf for that sequence, and then I just never use that werewolf ability. And if anything, like the fact that like having lycanthropy, lycanthropy, like the fact that it keeps you from like full sleeps or whatever. I was like, you know what? I always go and cure myself of the ailment, a la Codlock's wishes and stuff. So, but yeah, if you want to see me go through the companion quest line where I'm briefly a werewolf across those episodes, you can find those also in that Skyrim series. I did the companion stuff first, and then once that was wrapped up, moved on to Thieves Guild stuff. So yeah, you can find all those over at youtube.com/thatnerdysite, along with all of our other Let's Plays and stuff like that. You can find all the latest from us over at That Nerdy Site, or go to thatnerdysite.com. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please like, review, rate, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. Thank you for joining us. As always, stay nerdy, be good to each other, and class dismissed.